Do you ever walk or drive past someone with this kind of sign on the side of the road? What goes through your mind? Do you consider them to be addicts or criminals, or do you consider them to just be straight up lazy? What if that's not really the case? What if in reality that person works harder than anybody else and they just don't have enough money to provide food for their family? There are 41.2 million Americans that are food insecure, and out of that number, 12.9 million are children. And the USDA defines food insecurity as a household level economic and social condition of limited or uncertain access to adequate food. So basically, they don't have enough money to provide enough food for their family. So, according to whyhunger.org, characteristics of households with food insecurity include skipping or reducing the size of meals, not being able to afford a balanced meal, or going whole days without eating and going without food despite feeling hungry. What would you do if you had a whole day without food, not knowing whatever your next meal is? It's important to have 3 meals a day and have at least healthy food to have a healthy lifestyle. Healthy food means healthy lifestyle. So in order to do so, we need to be able to access those healthy foods because everyone has a right to nutritious food. So in a world of plenty, no one, not a single person should go without food. Hunger is genuinely caused by poverty and injustice. Food insecurity is caused by insufficient income to regularly buy food. So according to the National Coalition for the Homeless, 1 in 5 children go to bed and wake hungry. Across the United States, this number of families and individuals that are going to bed hungry is constantly living in fear of their next meal, and this number is also growing. So trends in food insecurity levels are parallel to national poverty levels. With that being said, food insecurity is very much connected with income. So the principal causes include unemployment, high housing costs, lack of food stamps, and high costs for medical and health issues. So when talking about food stamps, 42.3 million Americans currently rely on SNAP, which is food stamps. 83% of SNAP households have incomes below the poverty line, and 82% of all SNAP benefits go to the most vulnerable households. And this includes those with children, elderly, or disabled people. There are 15.6 million U.S. households that are suffering from food insecurity in America. From the previous slide, only 82% of food stamps go to the most vulnerable households. That leaves about 2.8 million homes that are left out of that equation. If these households are not receiving food stamps, what is left for them to do to get food? So if you're unable to get food stamps, families and individuals tend to do whatever they can to find food. So they usually go, in these kinds of situations, people end up committing crimes just to get food. This results in people risking their lives as free citizens to get food for their families. So why should somebody risk going to jail for food? So the United States is a diverse country with many different races and ethnicities. According to the National Coalition for the Homeless, 26.1% of Hispanic households and 25.2% of black households experience food insecurity compared to 10.8% of white households. So by that statistic, basically other races are twice as likely to be food insecure. So the solution is One World Everybody Eats. This is a nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing food security and building community through its pay-what-you-can nonprofit restaurant style. And it has over 60 existing restaurants. In 2003, Denise Carretta opened the first community cafe, which is called One World Cafe, in Salt Lake City, Utah. So it was a very new concept at the time, and later this couple named Brad and Libby came to her basically to open up their a kind of restaurant like the same as her, and they named it the same cafe. So while there are dozens of cafes in development, in One World Everybody's reputation has touched larger groups such as Panera Bread and John Bon Jovi for the Souls Foundation. So in 2009 Denise decided to close hers so she can work on opening other cafes. So there are new development teams that are joining organizations, network of community cafes. So a lot of these cafes depend on volunteers for them to run. The cafes together they serve nearly 4,000 meals a day. So lastly, words from Denise herself. Our goal is to continue to bring One World Everybody's visions to larger audiences. So she believes that mentoring and networking and fundraising for the community cafes is where her energy is best spent. So imagine if there weren't people following Denise's footsteps. What would it be like? Imagine if you are a customer that goes to one of these cafes on a daily basis. Sometimes you have enough money, sometimes you don't. On other times you don't, you just volunteer to do the dishes, but you still get to have food for the day. So these cafes are there to offer any price you're able to pay for. Also, imagine if you're living in poverty and you have a job that barely pays the bills. You're barely getting by with what you're bringing home. But your pantry is looking pretty empty. So you don't have a car and you're constantly having to take the bus everywhere you go. But before you go home, once you're coming home from work, before you go home, you have to make a stop at the grocery store. So once you get to the grocery store, you realize that you only have $10 to get food for your whole family. But anything healthy is out of your price range because a lot of the healthy foods nowadays are much more expensive than cheap food. So you end up buying a loaf of bread, peanut butter, and bags of chips. So you know none of this is healthy, but it's all you can afford at this time. So while you get on back to the bus, you have to hold your groceries close to you because you're in since you're in a poverty area, you're going to have to hold the items close to you so nobody can steal them on the bus. So you're hungry and you know your kids are hungry at home, so you stop at the McDonald's that's a block away from your house because you found $5 more in your purse. So you get something off the dollar menu to feed your family. So imagine if there was a One World Cafe everybody eats in place of that McDonald's. You could get a lot more food for the price and you'd probably get a lot more healthy food for your children. So now that you've imagined what it's like to be food insecure, what can you do to help these people and the organizations? So One World Everybody Eats is determined to help members become food secure. The organization itself focuses on helping developing cafes become the best they can be. While the organization is determined to spread these cafes through networking, you can also help as well. So you can help community cafes increase food security by donating to One World Everybody Eats. Your contributions will be used to support startup and existing cafes and strengthen this movement. A financial gift allows One World Cafe Everybody Eats Cafe to encourage new cafe operators, assist them through the startup phase, and help them grow into operating cafes and impact their community. So even if you don't want to donate, you can just easily spread the word. If you know anyone who is food insecure, informing them about these kinds of cafes can help them tremendously. So everything doesn't have to be about money because simply spreading the word will give exposure to these growing organizations. So lastly, if you want to learn more about this organization, you can go to their website at oneworldeverybodyeats.org. Then if you have any questions you like personal questions, you can contact them at community@oneworldeverybodyeats.org. And then lastly, if you do plan to donate, the address is presented at the bottom of the slide. And thank you for watching my presentation.